With my passion for crocheting, I wanted to make a lap blanket as my acknowledgement to Breast Cancer Awareness Month. A lap blanket is designed to cover a person's legs and lap and is more manageable than a standard blanket. I used a beautiful Chenille yarn for this lap blanket. This yarn is truly gorgeous to work with. It's so soft on your hands and it's a lovely weighty blanket, which I find to be not only warm but also very relaxing.
Hi, my name is Lindy and thank you for joining my channel. Welcome or welcome back.
On my lap blanket, I have mosaic crocheted the pink breast cancer awareness ribbon, widely recognized as a symbol of support. When making my lap blanket, I decided to include different shades of pink, which indicate varying breast cancers. I've also included light blue, which is in support of men living with breast cancer. Not everyone's a pink person, so the pink is for breast cancer awareness, but you can obviously make any color for this lap blanket. If you'd like the pattern for this mosaic crocheted ribbon, please make a comment and I'll send it to you. These are the colors I have chosen for my lap blanket. Pink, which we all know is the color of breast cancer awareness. The second color I've chosen is called Flower. In it you can see the variegated peach, blue and pink. I've chosen white as my third color because I love white. This is a Donman velvet yarn, 100% polyester. Basically, washing is very restrictive. You need to hand wash it. What I do is I use my delicate cycle on my washing machine, but please do not tumble dry it. It needs to be dry flat in order to maintain this lovely fluffy yarn. I find starting a project so exhilarating, all these beautiful new yarns, and I'm passionate about the project. The sizing of your lap blanket can vary from 30 inches wide to 60 inches long. So let's begin crocheting. This is the order of yarn I'm going to be working in: pink, white, and then the flower color. And I'm going to be using the 6.5mm crochet hook. I like to work from the center of the yarn, and you can see this yarn really unravels beautifully. We're going to start by making a very long chain stitch, 30 inches long. To start with a slip knot, which is crossing the two threads, yarn over and pull through, and immediately I can feel how gorgeous it is working with this yarn. And we're going to just make however many chain stitches make up 30 inches. So as mentioned, you can make the lap blanket as wide and as long as you wish. It is to cover your lap and your knees, so it's going to depend on the person whom you make this for. So their size and height. There we have 70. Okay, so there are 70 and we're at 33. That's fine. I'm going to make it 33. It's not important how long we make it. So it's 33 inches. It's going to end up about 32. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to notice that it's not very easy to see where all the stitches are. And I'm going to show you how we work this so that it makes it a little easier. We're going to work in a half double crochet. So what we're going to do is the first two stitches are going to be the height of our first half double crochet. So to start our half double crochet, we do yarn over. We skip the first two stitches and go into the first two threads of the third stitch. Yarn over, pull through, and then we just go yarn over and pull all three off. Now, in the beginning, we're not going to see the pattern very well. But as we go along, you're going to see that these little spaces in between is where we're going to put our hook. So we're going to go into each one of these 68 stitches. So second stitch, yarn over. Now you do need to feel this. This is the first stitch. So we now have to look for the second stitch. This is our first stitch. Here's our second stitch. And I just pull that down a little bit to get the hook into that. So I'm catching two stitches, yarn over, and then we slip off all three stitches. yarn over. That's the stitch we've just gone into. And the first row is a little more complicated, but here we go, into that stitch, yarn over, and slip off all 3 stitches. Yarn over. We've just been into this stitch here. You can see the stitches sitting there. We need to go into the next stitch, so I just pull down this stitch here, into it there, yarn over, and loop off all 3. Now that looks like a distance, but somehow that stitch is just a little bit stretched. Yarn over. That's the stitch we've just been into. Now we need to go into this stitch here. So we'll continue doing our half double crochet for the first row, and at the very end of this blanket I'm going to decide if it needs an edging. And if you know me, I have 3 balls of each yarn, and I just work on how much I have. I'm not going to buy another 3 balls of each yarn. So what I do then is I decide if I don't have enough, it doesn't get a border. So it's all relative to what we have available. So there you can see the first row. I need some more yarn, and this comes out beautifully. This is a very lovely yarn to work with. We've just been into this stitch here. We need to go into this next stitch, pick up 2 threads, yarn over, and half double crochet. Next stitch here, and you can decide how best to work this, how comfortable it is to work. You'll see as we go along, the half double crochet has a lovely twist to it. The other thing that's lovely about this blanket is we're using 3 colors. Now this is very important because the 3 colors, as we go along and I show you, you'll see how we're not going to end off the yarn at the end of each row by cutting it. We're just going to loop it up, which is going to give it a lovely effect, and there'll be fewer threads to work back. So let me keep going. This is a long row, and I'll meet you at the end of this row, my first row of half double crochet. Here we are at the end of the first row. When we're joining our yarn for the first time, it's slightly different to when we're continuing. So to join our yarn, we're going to go 2 chain stitches, and then we're going to turn around to start the second row. We're going to be using this lovely white. Make sure that this pink is at the back so we don't get tangled up in it. And we just start with the white like this, and then we just give the white a little tug, pink a little tug, yarn over, and we're now going to go into space. So we're not going to try and find these loops. So we're just going to go straight into that loop, and we're going to weave this back into the top of the first row. Now the reason we're weaving it back is because this yarn does fray, and we want to try and avoid as much fraying as possible. So we just do yarn over, and we do our first half double crochet. Then we go into the space, and again, remember what we're doing. We're not looking for working this V, these stitches. We're just going into the space between it. So weaving it back does require quite a few hands, but yarn over into this next space, and so we keep going down this row. And when we get a little way on, we can see how we give that pink a little tug to tighten it up. This is the end of the pink we will have to weave in. And here we've got the white on the top that we're weaving through. Now, it always takes a little while to see the pattern. The beginning is a little bit difficult to see. And we're just going to go into each of these spaces. And then at the next row, when we put in the next color, we're going to join it in the same way. And once we have got all three colors in our project, we'll be able to just loop this up and keep this running all the way up. And because we have three colors, you'll see how they loop into the next. So yarn over, and you can see there's a space here, very easy to see. You can feel it with your fingers. So into the space, and you can decide how long you want this weaving back of the yarn to be. But as I mentioned, it's only in the beginning when you're joining the colors, and obviously when you start a new ball of yarn. And because this yarn is so chunky, it actually weaves in really nicely. So we've got to the end of here. We don't want to pull it too much, because then we want to make sure it's the length, because if we pull it too much, it's going to tighten this up. So here we are. We're going to weave this in. There is not a right or a wrong side because it's a blanket. So we want to make sure that we weave this in really carefully. I tend to weave it and then thread it, especially with this. Okay, and now I'm actually going to take that little bit and put it back into here. There we go. Okay, later on we can trim that down if we wish. So let's now keep going with this second row of white. I must comment again how beautifully soft this is. It is so gorgeous to work with. And now that we don't have that little tail end, it's a lot less to think about. So just into the spaces. Now by putting it into the spaces, you can see how this lovely pattern is forming. But it's going to get even more beautiful as we go further on. So I'm going to keep going in this second row using the white, and I'll show you when we get to the end. Here we are at the end of our second row using our white chenille yarn for this lap blanket. Half double crochet, 3, yarn over, slip of all 3. You can actually feel where you need to put the crochet hook, so it's perfect. So the last stitch, yarn over, we go into the very last space, yarn over, and loop all 3 off. So now I'm going to show you the second time of how to join a new color. And remember, once we've done that, we're going to keep all of these yarns and just use them in order of pink, white, flower. So let's join the third color. The end of this row, we're going to do 2 chain stitches, turn our yarn around. Now next color is this flower color, and I'm going to show you later how we manage our yarn so we don't get a little overwhelmed by that. This is the color which is quite light. You're only going to see it once it crochets up. So right now it's very light, which is gorgeous. So what we do is we put our hook back into this white yarn, tighten up the thread, and now we take this flower yarn, just give it a little tail, yarn over, loop it through, give both of them a little tug, but we can worry about that when we get further down. Yarn over, we're going to take this new yarn, the flower yarn, and we're going to hold it on the top of this row and weave it back in. You will have to tighten up the different threads and don't get confused. So we're holding this on the top, or you can put it at the back, whichever is easier for you. So we've done our yarn over into the first loop, and we just continue down this row, holding this new thread of the flower color, very pale in color. It's going to be gorgeous in the pattern, very subtle. So we just continue working down this row, holding the color at the top to about 8 stitches. Just get down the row. Now we're ready to sort this out. So we start by just giving a little tug, because we don't want this to pull. If you pull too tight, it's pulling. We don't want that. So we want to loosen this, give this a little pull, and then we also want to give this a little tug. So we haven't tightened up all the stitches. So there we are. Now I'm going to just weave this back so it's out of our way. And again, we just pull that very gently. We don't want to tighten up the row. We're trying not to cut the yarn, because as soon as you cut the yarn, you get the yarn fraying. So we're on our third row now, and we've got the white at the end of this side of the row, and we've got the pink at the end of this side of the row, and in the center we've got the flower color. Let's keep going down this row of flower color. When we get to the end, I'm going to show you how we weave the colors up the side. I'll keep going down this third row and I'll meet you at the end. We're nearing the end of the third row and the first row of our third color, the flower. So we just keep going in this simple half double crochet. Now when we get to the end, we have all 3 of these yarns that we're going to be using throughout the lap blanket already attached. So we get to the last, let's just take a little more yarn out. We get to the last, and the way we do this now is we hold this thread, because what we want to do is we want to bring this yarn that we're going to be working next in line with where we're going to be. Yarn over into this last loop, pull this thread up and just go over this, including it and bringing the yarn up, and we do our last double crochet. Now the next thing we do is we change this yarn for the next yarn, which is pink, and we just do 2 chain stitches. So we've already started the pink row. Now what you need to do is turn this around, and this is where you need to get untangled. So what I tend to do is I put the yarn that I'm working on in the center. So I'm going to move this pink to the center like that, And then the next yarn is this color, which I'm going to make sure I'm untangled. I'm now going to work in the pink yarn. The center yarn is the yarn we're using. The white yarn, this floral yarn, is what we've just used, and the white is at the end of this row. So now we continue with the pink. We've done 2 chain stitches, we've turned our work yarn over, and we're going to go into the very first stitch here. Now don't worry about the flower color, that's sitting there until we get to the end. We now are just thinking about the pink, which is in the center. So we give ourselves a lot of yarn to work with, because as we know, this yarn crochets up quickly. So now we do yarn over into the next stitch. And so we go on with the row. And nothing is going to really change very much, because at the end of each row we're going to do what I've just shown you, how we brought up the color. And so these are slowly going to be woven into the blanket. At the very end, if we would like to, we can do a border, but of course that's also dependent on the size and if we have enough yarn. So I'll keep going on this row with our half double crochets. Straightforward, very easy to do, nice to feel. You can actually do this while reading or listening to things, because there's nothing really to concentrate on. We're not increasing, decreasing, changing. The pattern is just in the color. So I'll keep going on this row, the 4th row, second time we're using the pink, and when we get to the end I'll show you again how I include the next color. So we're at the end of this row, and I want to just show you again how we add the new color. So what we do is we go yarn over into the stitch, we bring this up, and then we just loop around it so that we've now brought the white up, which is the next color we're going to introduce. We then make 2 chain stitches at the end of the row with the new color. Pull that, pull the last color, and we turn it around. Now as we turn it around, we move the white and the pink. The pink goes to the end, the white goes to the center, and we always keep the yarn we're working on in the center. Then this pink gets put to the side here, out of the way. We've finished with the pink. The white, we turn it around and we begin. We've done our 2 chain stitches and we go straight into our half double crochet. So we continue with the white row. I will show you one more time when we get to this end of this row how to introduce the flower color, but for the moment I'm just going to complete this row, and you can see the little bit of blue and peach and pink that's coming in. So we're getting a nice variegated colouring. We're nearing the end of this row, and I just want to show you a recap on how to bring in the next colour to keep a nice edge. Because remember, we may not make a border. We may decide to leave it without a border. So let's have a look as we get to the end. So we've got one more to go, yarn over. This is the next color that's coming in, which is the flower color. It looks very similar to the white. So we go into this and then we hook this in so that we're bringing the yarn up in line with where it's going to be crocheted. Right, so now we've got that up and you can see it's very nice edging. Bring it up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 chain stitches with the new thread. We're going to turn it around. What we're going to do now is we're going to bring the white in, which is what we've just worked on, and we're going to take the color that we're going to be working on next and put it in the center, moving the white to this side and the pink to this side. And it all looks like maybe a lot of effort, but as I say, if we've got everything lined up, then it's ready to go. So there's the white, we're leaving that over there. Here's the petal color, and what we're going to do now is just do the row in the petal color. And as I mentioned, this feeds out really nicely, so that's pretty decent. So now I'm going to keep going in this row, and in fact I'm going to do quite a few more rows before I show you how we're doing, because there's nothing new and different happening with each row now. So it's pink, white, flower, pink, white, flower, and we're going to just keep going in this for as long as we decide. I have already crocheted the breast cancer awareness ribbon onto a piece of cotton, which I might stitch into the back of this fabric. I'm going to have a look as I go along. The slap blanket is coming along nicely. We're still only on the first ball of each yarn, and I have to say I'm just loving working with this yarn. Beautiful on your hands. So when you are crocheting, don't forget to every now and then stop, shake out your hands, stretch out your hands. As it grows, it actually has pulled in a little bit, so we're 27 inches wide and we're now 15 inches in length, and this is how much of each of the first balls of yarn we have left, which means we should easily get a 40-inch length, and then I might do 1 or 2 edges to this to give it a border. We at the end of the first ball of the pink. I want to just do a recap how we join the new ball of pink. So we carry on to the end as we always do, bringing up the pink in line, turn it around, and I'm going to introduce the pink. And this is just how I do it. Obviously we all do it our own way. I'm going to weave the end and the start of the pinks in. So we're in this position with the petal color, holding this one here, and we're just going to do 2 chain stitches and give this last thread a little tug. While we're weaving them in, we don't have to worry too much until we're at the end of weaving them in, so I'll show you how we do that. Yarn over, and we just go into the next hole, and we include these 2 threads. So I hold it like that, depends on how you hold your yarn, and then we just keep going along here. And after we've done a few stitches, I give this a little tug to make sure it's straight. Now with another yarn I may actually even just trim it, but because this can fluff off, I tend to not trim it if I don't have to. So what I'm going to do is a few more stitches, so 3 more. Two and a third. And now in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave these little tails back in, and I'm going to weave them into one into the top here because it'll be covered, and one into the top here of the pink that'll be covered. This is now going to be covered with the next thread. I've almost finished the second ball of each of these different 3 colors. So here I am at the end of the white row, and I just want to recap how we finish off the row and how I move the different colored yarns around to make it easy to work. So we're just doing the half double crochet into each space. We get to the very end, bring this up, so we're going to go into the last one, hook that over like that, and there we've included it, pulled it up to where it needs to be. Now we're going to make 2 chain stitches, 1 and 2. I pull the white yarn, I pull the pink yarn so that they lined up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the pink and the flower to the right of my work, and I'm going to move the pink one to the left. So this one has fallen on the floor to there. Right, so now I'm sitting here with the white and the flower, and the one at the end of the row is this pink. So now I'm ready to start the next row. I've done 2 chain stitches of the flower color. I'm going to start the next row as I always do, and I'll show you when I get to the end of the blanket, because it's just the same stitch row after row. We've now completed as far as I want to go with the blanket. So I've finished on a pink, I started on a pink. The width is 27 inches and the length is now 39 inches. I'm going to give it a border. I'm still not sure how much yarn I have to do the border, so I'm taking this slow. What I'm going to do is I am now working on the side. So what I did was I came from the bottom where I started, and I've done stitches up the side to give it a border. It's not easy because, as you can see, the border is irregular. You have to decide where you want to put the stitches. And what I'm doing is I'm just doing the stitching like this along the side, picking up every now and then, which is kind of the same as this half double crochet. So you can see the little bits and then you can see the half double crochets. I'm just going down the side and I'm picking up, so I've just picked up a stitch here. I'm going to go in between these 2, always trying to take 2 stitches at a time. What you don't want to do is go into these big spaces because it's going to pull away and make a gap. So I'm trying to just pick up each stitch, and this is just individual as to how you do it. So the way I'm doing it, and you're not going to get a perfect edging, is yarn over, we're going to do half double crochets down the side. Now when we get to something like this, we go in and we leave one of the stitches behind. So we're not going to go into that space because it's a hole and it's going to make it bigger. We try and just pick up 2 stitches at a time, and it does move quite slowly, But by doing that, we're keeping that piece behind. So we go in here, and again leaving one stitch in the front or at the back, because remember this blanket has no right or wrong side. And so we're carrying on picking up like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all the way down the side until I get to the top. Then I'm going to work these pieces in, and I'm going to give it a corner with 3 half double crochets in the corner. Then I'm going to go all the way along the top, down the other side, and I'll then come back up to the bottom. Once I've done the white, I'm then going to bring in the flower, and I'm going to finish with the pink. So let me keep going with this, and I'll see you at the end. I want to show you this corner because there's a lot going on here. So we've got the 2 end pieces for the flower and the pink. I've cut them off with a little bit of extra because I'm going to weave them back in, and then just to double secure them, I'm going to darn them back in. So here we are with the white. We're doing a row of white around the edge, and as we mentioned, the next will be the flower and then ending with the pink. Now we get to the corner, and what we need to do in the corner, we need to do 3 half double crochets and then weave these in. And this is not a difficult part. Along the top and the bottom, it's easier to work than down the side where we have to create stitches. For the corner, we're going to hold these 2 loose threads here, and we're going to go into the corner as we would do with any corner. And we're going to make 1 half double crochet, a second half double crochet, and a third. So we're doing 3 half double crochets on each corner to get that turn. We're then going to continue as we do with this, where we're doing half double crochet, and we're just going down this row. And all the time I'm holding these tail ends of the 2 threads. And then at this stage, right after doing about 5, I give this a little pull. I make sure it's straight in there. And now I'm going to take these 2 tails, the white we're going to continue with, and I'm going to darn them back in here. Because this is the second row, it is going to be slightly different because the corner is getting larger. The first row of the border, I did 3 half double crochets into the corner. The second row, which is this petal color, I'm going to be doing 5. I go into the corner of this middle stitch here, 1 half double crochet, the second half double crochet, third, fourth, and we're going to do 5 into the corner because the corner is growing and we need more half double crochets. So there is the corner of the second row of the border. I'm going to continue down here. I'm not going to have enough yarn, but I have a little more white, so I'm going to put the white in at the end of this petal in the second row of the border. We begin with 2 chain stitches, and those 2 chain stitches are going to be the first half double crochet in the corner. Three, 4, 5. Now we could have done 3 and come up here and joined it on the corner, but I've chosen to do 5, and when I get to the last stitch I'm going to just do a slip stitch to connect the whole row. We're then going to keep these 2 tails, as we always do, of the flower and the pink that we're starting, and we're going to do our normal half double crochet all the way along here. So into the first stitch, and we're going to do as we always do, holding the 2 tails and connecting them, working over them. At the end of about 5 stitches I'm going to then sew back these 2 tails to secure them, and with this yarn, because it's so soft and fluffy, we will need to sew them back and forth a few times. So I give this a little tug, make sure it's flat, and I'm then going to continue all the way down this side and the end, and up the other side and end, and I will meet you when I've completed this last row of pink. We're at the very end of the last row of our border in the pink, and we're right near the end. We just do our half double crochet, into this very last stitch here, and we're going to just connect to the corner with a slip stitch. We'll then just trim it. So we will just sew this in and all the way back, and here we have our completed blanket.
I hope this tutorial helped you to create a personalized gift for that special person in your life. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please be sure to like and subscribe, and you'll be notified when my next video is available. Take care and bye.